everyone. Long time no see, and I'm sorry for it being so long. I've been putting little notes in my comments here on YouTube to let people know kind of what's been going on. But this is going to be a video that basically talks about why I haven't been here. The majority doesn't really have to do with the cancer, but this whole channel of mine is my story of a single mom with cancer. So this is part of my story, and a lot of it is family related. And yeah, so if you want to hear about it, you can, keep watching. And otherwise, you can go on to my next video, which will be out hopefully within a week. Just so that you know, my next video will be actually about my next treatment that I am on. So yes, I have started another treatment. All right, so again, without ado, let's get on to this video. Okay, so the last time I talked to you guys, I was on Taxotere, or no, I apologize. I had just been told I had to stop Taxotere. Taxotere is a chemotherapy, if this is the first time you watched, and I'm taking it for metastatic or stage 4 triple negative breast cancer. And what I talked about in my last video was that I was having really bad problems with the side effects, especially neuropathy, lymphedema, and some other stuff. And my doctor said that I needed to stop because otherwise the neuropathy would become permanent, which I have a lot of permanent neuropathy from other taxane type of chemotherapies throughout the years. I've been on treatment off and on since 2010. And so when I stopped last, I told you that I still needed to have my PET scan and that I would get back to you on the results of that, and that my doctor said he would base my next treatment on those results, and probably he would have to try to find a clinical trial, because I'd already been on the majority of the treatments for triple negative metastatic breast cancer, and the ones that, most of them that were left, were all ones that were too similar to ones that gave me problems or didn't work, or they were ones that caused the bad neuropathy. During this time, I had a long time where I wasn't taking it, and I started to feel myself. My hair actually started to grow back. And sorry, I need to make sure I didn't look like a fool when I pulled this back on. So anyway, my hair had started to grow back, and I started to get energy again, and my neuropathy had started to diminish a little bit. It didn't stop, but it wasn't as bad. And the lymphedema wasn't as bad. I had 2 appointments with the lymphedema specialist to get a sleeve and to start treatment. And because of everything that I'm about to explain that have happened throughout the past 2 months, I wasn't able to get to either of those appointments. But my neuropathy is still, my lymphedema is still definitely there, and worse in the mornings. But after, I'm trying to think if I told you about this. Let me just real quick say that in February, I had double pneumonia, and right before that time, my dad had, he has heart problems, and his heart had stopped for 30 minutes, and we were thanking God because they were able to get it working again, and he didn't have any major damage. he thinks he has brain damage from it because he doesn't feel better. We're thinking it's for the better because basically his life, I think the way he looks, his outlook on life is better. So if there's brain damage, it's for the better in my opinion. But anyway, we were thanking God for that. And but he was still having heart problems, and we were mostly saying that the majority of his heart problems were due to his medications and getting that situated. He ended up getting a, what is it called? Not a pacemaker. What was it called? Defibrillator. So if his heart had stopped again, it would like shock him. And so there were a few times where he had felt it happen, so he knew his heart was still having problems, but they didn't pinpoint exactly what was going on. While I was in the hospital, we both got out around the same time. While we were in there, my children's cousin had died from a heart problem, and my son was still having issues with his heart. You can go back and read or watch videos because I've talked about my son's heart condition. And but because of all that, you know, he was really scared that something was going to happen again, and his heart still was having problems while he was on the medication. So he basically, we gave it up. We talked it over with the doctor, but we gave the decision to him because he's 17, and he chose to have the a procedure done to his heart so that he didn't have to continue with the medication. So that was, we put a date for that, and so that we'll set that to the side for now and talk about that in a minute. It's hard. It's like I want to go by timeline, but I kind of want to go by what was most important, so I might be skipping, and I'm trying to stick to a timeline, but give you as much information ahead of time so you're like, what is she talking about? So if I talk about something, you're not like confused. So when we got out of the hospital, my dad had gotten his defibrillator, but he was still having heart problems. And we ended up finding out on February 24th that his youngest brother had passed away, which was unexpected. And I was having a lot of like custody issues. We've been divorced for a long time, and for the past 10 years have been in and out of court with that. So there were a lot of issues as far as stress. Well, a lot of issues that had to do with the custody that we had to go back to court for a few times, mediation, and that raised a lot of stress. But I can't go into detail about that. But I do want to mention that because, of course, when you're, you know, divorced and you have kids, that's a major thing. And sometimes people are lucky. They can work it out themselves, or they can get a judge to work it out quickly, and sometimes it goes on for years. And in my case, it's going on for years. So while all this was happening, we had been in front of the mediator a few times, and there was a lot of things going on as far as custody that was very stressful. I ended up getting my results back from my PET scan, and I guess we made the right decision to stop treatment because it had stopped working. When I was in the hospital for the double pneumonia, it looked like it was shrinking some of the tumors, and some of them that were growing had stopped growing. But since then, tumors had continued or had started to grow again, and I had a few new tumors. So that kind of changed my doctor's opinion about what kind of treatment to give me. And it turned out that there are no, he talked to a few of the hospitals in the area that do trials, and there are no trials to start that were that I qualified for, that were open for me. So when I saw him next, he basically said, you have to be on something. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm not going to sit around and, I'll be honest, I contemplated stopping. I really did. I felt better. Hold on one second. When I say I felt better, I mean I wasn't as sick and tired and didn't have a lot of other side effects that you get with treatment. And that made me feel like I was feeling better. But then I was also seeing how much it was affecting my family and how much, if I could have time, and if I don't have a lot of time, if I could spend whatever time I have with my kids making memories instead of sometimes being okay, and when we do try to make memories, I'm not quite awake or whatever. So, and then I'm like, if the treatment's going to make me sick all the time, do I really want to end my life like that and be the rest of my life on medication? And then I'm like, well, financially too, if I could work, I wouldn't be on medication. I'd be able to work, have money to pay my bills, and not have that stress. Have money to do things with my kids that I'd like to do, and do things and give them things that they deserve to have. And just kind of whenever it would get to the point where I couldn't work, then I would do it, and I would go into treatment, or I would, live the rest of my life however. And that's how I was thinking. But then seeing how quickly the tumors had grown and how there were new ones, and I ended up getting to the point where I was back when in 2016, when I had the big mediastinal masses, and I had a lot of tumors in my lungs and fluid in my... So basically, seeing how much the cancer had already grown up to that point, and in that short bit of time, I had already started to have some evidence that it was already spreading, because I'd started to feel like I had felt back in 2016 when I had the large mediastinal mass and the broken sternum, fluid in my lungs, fluid in my heart, and all, more tumors in my lungs. Back then, I had a difficult time with sleeping. That was my main point where I definitely was seeing that I wasn't doing good, because I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep back then, but I also couldn't lay down. Every time I tried to lay down, I felt like I was being suffocated, and I would or if I fell asleep laying down or slightly laying down, I would wake up and gasping for air because I couldn't breathe. And I'd started to do that again, and I'd started to every once in a while go through some coughing fits again and having more pain in my chest. So that's like a sign that my lungs aren't doing good. And so I had already had all those side effects starting to build up again, and it just meant that I wouldn't have been able to go, I wouldn't have had time to look for a job. And if I had started to work, I probably wouldn't have been able to work very long, because I told myself if I went back to work that I would work as long as I could until my body couldn't take it anymore, and that was a sign it was already starting to go that way. So when my doctor told me that, we have to put you on something, I was not about to say no. And he said, typically the chemo that I'm going to put you on, called Gemzar, it is given to you at the end when you've tried a lot of other treatments for for at least, I don't know if it's only for triple negative breast cancer, but for stage 4 cancer. But typically with triple negative, it is put with another chemotherapy, whether that's a taxane, or I think it might be carboplatin or something like that. Carboplatin I was allergic to, or it wasn't allergic to, I had a really bad reaction to it. And there was another one I had a really bad reaction to. So I think it's one of those two. or the other ones would be taxing. So I'm going on this with just the one medicine, just the Gemzar. So it may not work quite as good, but I'm even considering telling him if it comes to a point where I have to choose another taxane that will work with this in conjunction. I might say I'll put up with the side effects of more neuropathy. It's like, I don't want to die, so I have to be here for my kids. I've realized how much I haven't seen, so many places I haven't gone, so many things I wanted to do, and I haven't been able to do them. I went to California last year, which was amazing, but it was only 3 days. Actually, technically only 2 days. And so I wasn't able to do a lot of the stuff I wanted. We did Disney, but I didn't do the normal California things. And I always wanted to see the wine country and so many things I wanted to do, and I want to do. I want to do with my kids. I want to do, just make a difference in this world, and I have to be here. So if that means living with neuropathy and some other side effects, I have to do it. So I agreed with him, and I said, yeah, you're right, I do have to start. And so that treatment, so I started that.
So you will.
Alright, so I'm here and I have my court access.
Well for yourself.
I just signed my papers giving permission. It's not up yet. I have to run my water for my my blood first, and then do it. To run it. So it's called Gemzar Melanoma. I had a different name, I thought. It's not. Right. So catch you when I start. Here we go again.